Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Haldeman, why did the enterprise enter a conservatorship?
The enterprise entered a conservatorship in September 2008 because of the severe economic stress our company was under, and in the words of Secretary Paulson, felt a timeout was necessary.
Well, do you agree with Mr. DeMarco? Because in his testimony, he said it was a series of poor business decisions that led to the conservatorship. You agree with that or disagree with that?
In my tenure at Freddie Mac, I've tried very hard to—
I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about decisions that led up to the entering of a conservatorship. It's a very simple question. Were there poor business decisions that led to that? The answer is obviously yes. I mean, we can have this exercise as long as you want to have it, but the answer has to be yes, right? Or else there wouldn't have been a conservatorship.
It's difficult for me to say that because I don't want to second-guess my predecessors.
Well, we are paying you a handsome salary because you're supposed to be an expert in the field, and you're not going to second-guess your predecessors?
It's because it's very difficult to say what you would have done, what one would have done at that point in time, given those circumstances and pressures that they were under.
So you can't think of a single poor business decision that was made prior to 2008?
I can talk about some decisions that were made that I hope I would do differently, but I'd prefer not to characterize them as poor business decisions.
Well, Mr. DeMarco, it's your language, poor business decisions. What specifically did you mean by poor business decisions? By his predecessors, because he's obviously reluctant to go into that. Hopefully you will not be as reluctant.
Mr. Gowdy, both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac reduced their underwriting standards, allowed much greater risk in terms of the mortgages that they purchased. They reduced the guarantee fees, the insurance that they were charging for this, and they made investments in private label mortgage-backed securities that, while at the time were all rated by private credit rating agencies as AAA-rated securities, clearly we have seen that there was substantial risk in those instruments. And so these are business decisions made by the executives of those companies at the time to make these decisions. This is largely occurring in the period from 2005 to the first half of 2008.
Who was Daniel Mudd?
He was the CEO of Fannie Mae during this period.
What was his total compensation?
I don't know off the top of my head, sir.
So you wouldn't disagree if it were $12 million?
That could be right.
How about Richard Siren?
He was the CEO of Freddie Mac.
During what time period?
I'm not sure, but it ended at the time of conservatorship.
Exactly, 2003 to 2008. Now, what was his total compensation for that time period?
Again, I'm sorry, sir, I don't know that.
Would you disagree with me if I told you it was more than $38 million?
I could believe that.
All right, so surely you can understand the frustration of taxpayers who are paying bonuses while the bus is driven through the gates of hell, right, and then you want us to pay bonuses while the people change the tires.
Yeah. I can certainly understand the frustration, and this committee doesn't know me very well, but I've been a career civil servant my entire life, and most of that career service has been in policy positions in which I have tried to advise policymakers, including numerous Congresses, of the risks to the taxpayer in the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac model. It gives me no satisfaction or pleasure to be sitting here as conservator of these companies at this point, seeing the devastation of the American taxpayer that's resulted when I spent the better part of my career trying to warn policymakers of the risks that were inherent in the structure that was in place pre-conservatorship, and it's why I would like to end this hearing with the same plea that I began at the beginning. I would like for FHFA and is ready to work with the Congress and the administration to bring these conservatorships to an end and to build a more robust, sound housing finance system for the future.
Well, I want to ask you about that. Who was James Johnson?
James Johnson was the CEO of Fannie Mae prior to back in the 1990s.
And what was his total compensation during that time period?
It was substantial, sir. I don't know.
$100 million.
Right.
Now, he had a good working relationship with Congress, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Now, Franklin Raines, what was his total compensation?
I don't know, sir.
Would you disagree if it were more than $90 million? And he
I
had a
could
good
believe
working
that.
relationship with Congress. So
Right.
sitting here simply saying that we need a better working relationship with Congress, one could argue that's what got us into this abyss.
I'm sorry, I don't recall saying having a better working relationship with Congress. I thought I said.
I've heard you mention the word Congress a half dozen times. And, Mr. Chairman, if I could have 30 more seconds, the graveyard is full of people who are waiting on Federal judgeships that never came. And I've heard the argument time and time again that we have to raise compensation levels for Federal judges so we can attract the right kind of people. And yet, every time there's an opening, there are 100 folks that are dying for it. They'll take a tremendous cut in pay. Now, I find it bitterly ironic that the total compensation for the United States Supreme Court justices is less than either of these two men made. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.